We're now going to item 11, which is the regional update on the regional deal. This should be a short one. We've been asked by the Minister of Local Government if we want to submit a light touch proposal for a regional deal, whatever that means. Pardon? Well, move, but I just finished my little corridor to open it yet, but I know you're happy to move. We're all happy to move home probably, but I want this to be called the Auckland deal and include things like simple legislative fixes, integrated transport planning, shared immigration planning, collaboration on science, innovation and technology, long-term agreement on major projects, particularly ones which we are supposedly partners. We got in the letter there, typically as of Wellington in a joint partnership way, a form to fill out with 19 separate bits, but we won't be doing it that way. We'll send back a grown-up person's letter. Stu's here, who's working with this, so it's been moved by, this will require a bit of staff did a bit of work over summer to build a proposal, and I've suggested a political reference group inform that before a draft proposal comes back to us in February. So we're just going to say we're selling the government, yes, we are going to fill out something a bit like the form, and we'll do some work on this, but we won't send it until February when we all sit down and are brought up to date with what we're going to say. So up there, so it's been moved by Councillor Walker, and I'll second this, and now I'll open it up for questions of Max and Stu, and then we'll have a debate about it. So I've got questions already from Councillors Newman and Fletcher. Did you not have one, Councillor Fletcher first then?
My question is, where are we at resuming the meetings that used to take quarterly between the Prime Minister and senior government ministers and the full council? Because I think to have one of those, it would actually assist an Auckland deal, because there would be an understanding of all of the issues that we're trying to traverse here. So I would prefer to see an invitation be sent with some urgency to the government ministers that they attend as soon as possible a meeting of the Auckland Council. Our CEO is well experienced in those meetings, and I wonder that have we actually formally invited them? Would it be possible to do so? So I'll let Max respond.
I might comment that we have the Prime Minister agreed to quarterly meetings with at least myself and some that I can bring in. We had two, but we didn't get the last one, and it's now. But I have been invited to go to Wellington. It's a bit annoying because he's actually an MP in Auckland, but I have been invited to go to Wellington to meet in December, and I don't think we really wanted the whole 21 of us, and I think it would be a bit hard to do, but I will very much encourage him to meet in Auckland so that we can do what you want to do, which is not a bad idea.
The success of previous meetings, and we would not have got the CRL across the line unless we had had those meetings, was that the ministers came here, and those ministers saw that on the majority of issues, Council was completely united. And I think an invitation, I'm asking you whether we could formally invite government ministers to come to the Auckland Council.
Well, make it formal, but we certainly are talking to them regularly about meeting here. But we have been, and I'm going to be forced to fly down there to spend half an hour with someone who lives in Auckland, which seems to me to be nuts. But
I have much sympathy that you shouldn't be flying to Wellington, but if we are not clear about our aspirations, maybe they are misunderstanding. Maybe it's something that could come from our CEO and yourself as a joint invitation, and have it on the schedule for next year.
Happy to take that advice. I'm sure we're doing everything bar that at the moment. The Chief Executive is chatting regularly with his counterparts, and so are we. But at this stage here, we are planned to have. It is planned that I will have a meeting with the Prime Minister in later December. But and it's. But I will very much convey your message there, Councillor Fletcher, which is in keeping with what we want to do.
I wonder, to that end, would you entertain, under the recommendation in E, that an invitation be extended to the government?
Here.
Now, Councillor Newman, have you still got a question or not?
Well, my question, I guess, is to the mover and the seconder. Actually, I'm kind of loath to, because I generally don't volunteer my time for these sorts of all-ins, but I'd actually be quite interested in being part of this political reference group myself. And the reason for that is that I think that having gone through I hate the term strategic, to be honest, the background document to this deal arrangement, there are a range of quite important aspects to this that relate to funding and alignment that I would like us to address, and I'd like some input into that. I also think that, it is very much, from the terms of reference for this document, it appears very much to address the enabling of the agenda of government, and I do think there does need to be some degree of negotiation as part of a regional deal around some of the expectations that government is prepared to reconsider, particularly in relation to density standards and et cetera, in the previous item, we've just had a reference to red zoning and choke points in relation to our network that's not going to enable growth in certain locations. I'd like to just be available for that if you will indulge me, Chair. If the mover and the seconder would.
Sounds good to me.
Well, Councillor Lee's next. We'll work our way through. Then I've got Councillor Henderson.
Can I just say, in support of Councillor Fletcher, the meeting of the New Zealand Government Cabinet and the governing body took place for about 6 years under the leadership of Mayor Len Brown, and came to an end after Mayor Phil Goff was elected. I think the last meeting I can recall, when there were, the leading members of the cabinet were in the room, John Key, yes, Stephen Joyce, Nick Smith, Paula Bennett, and so on, Simon Bridges. They all used to come, and because they considered the Auckland Council and the problems of Auckland serious enough for the cabinet to come and discuss it kanohi ki kanohi, if you like. Now I can understand the mayor wanting to meet with the Prime Minister or other leaders by himself. That's his right, and I would support that. But it shouldn't preclude what I thought was a novel and very constructive initiative initiated by John Key and Len Brown. It should be restored. Thank you.
Okay, well, the request will be made. Fair enough, I'm not opposing that. Councillor Henderson?
Thank you. I've got a completely different question.
Great.
Massively fan of regional deals. Think they work overseas, fantastic stuff. We hear a lot about the positives. I just want to get a sense of what are the risks? What are the potential downsides to this process?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor, through Chair. I think probably the key risk is just wasted effort, I suppose, given we haven't been formally invited to participate. All councils have received a letter from the Minister inviting them to, potentially make a proposal, and so there's some risk of wasted effort if a deal doesn't eventuate, or the deal eventuates but it doesn't amount to much. I think we mitigate that by, and the framework attempts to mitigate that by suggesting that we develop what they call a light touch proposal, which is we don't overwork the proposal. We base it on existing work and plans rather than inventing new ideas and plans for the proposal. So that I think is well mitigated as a risk, but that's probably the main risk. The other risk for the council to be, probably to keep in mind is something that Councillor Newman mentioned, which is, the regional deal framework understandably reflects the government's priorities for in terms of regional growth and development, and it's, I think, it would be the intention of, I assume, of the governing body, and certainly supported by staff, that there's a strong message around what Auckland's priorities and Auckland Council's priorities are, and making sure that the deal is in fact a deal that reflects the joint aspirations of both the government and the council, rather than being one-sided. So that's again a risk and a mitigation. But those would be the two main risks I would raise. The international evidence is that there's a range of different things called city deals or regional deals around the world. They're all quite different. Where they have worked better, I think, is where they are based on partnership, a degree of devolution to regions, so understanding about joint objectives and priorities, rather than being quite in some cases deals haven't been that successful when they've been quite transactional and focused on individual projects which may or may not be funded anyway. So it is around trying to centre it on joint objectives and aspirations, and enabling regions to get on and realise our own aspirations, I suppose.
Thanks, it's really helpful. Thanks, Matt.
We did prepare a paper about what we thought Auckland was about. It had a very flash name, and we're going to update that.
The manifesto for Auckland.
The manifesto, and we'll review that as after a year of the current government, and send another copy of that down with it. I think that the downside possible, Councillor Henderson, is that it just descends into an election slogan that never really got anything. It was a city deal, then it became a regional deal. Then they've asked every councillor in the country to send one in, so I don't want to be tangled up with the city of Ekatahoon or wherever that is. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to separate a couple of things here. So one is around, so I ask it as a question just so we're all kind of clear. So one's about, we've been invited to do a regional deal, right? So along with every other council. So we will start this by saying we're different, blah, blah, blah. It's basically, I wrote down paragraph 9 of the Mayor's original manifesto, which is the things that you want to see, happen. I think the risk is putting too much in there, because the Mayor has, for the councillors that don't know, the Mayor does have regular meetings with both the Minister for Auckland and other ministers on his own, right? So he does have those. So their relationship is there with staff and the relevant ministers. So I think I absolutely support the regional deal. I think but I'm also cautious that you don't put too much in it, because we are so different. And if you're looking at from a national perspective, from a country perspective, we are quite unique. So I don't want to invest too much time in a regional deal that the Mayor has already had a lot of conversations around. That is continuing that process. So all power to you in a separate process. So I support where it is. I think as to the makeup of the group, we've just got to be careful that the group represents all the different parts that will feed to the points of the regional deal, right? So when you ask for 2 local boards, you're not just asking for any 2 local boards. They've got to come with the choice, and I don't know who's making them, whether it's the Mayor or you guys, on who those local boards are. But they've got to fill a gap that is a bit of urban, bit of rural, to give that full context of what we are, right? Is that where you're coming from?
Yep, that's a great question, Deputy Mayor. What we'd thought of doing was inviting the local boards to decide on 2 reps, but one of the suggestions we'd have is look at the 2 local boards facing the greatest growth in the next 30 years, which off the top of my head are Franklin and Waitemata, but asking the local boards to decide who they'd like to be on that working group. Also noting, look, it is over summer and it's a big ask for elected members and a big time commitment over a very short window.
Yeah, good point around that. And the second aspect, so as regard to E, this is not actually about the regional deal, right? So E is really more about council, would I be correct, councillor? It's more about council government relations. So
Not
or
at
is it
all.
about the regional deal?
Not at all, with respect through you, Chair. It is about helping the Prime Minister and the ministers understand the plethora of issues and the range of tools they have in their toolbox to help us in establishing a deal. So whether it's passing legislation to enable a visitor levy, whether it's the Auckland Future Fund legislation which is on the timetable, it's around legislation that we require. It's about the integrated transport plan that we need. It's about looking at the infrastructure going forward. And frankly, God knows where we are with Plan Change 78. It's about getting that dialogue going. So you want that very much so, yes.
There'll be, I think that those are not mutually exclusive. We need to improve. As Max had said, the most successful runs of the world where the basis of it is mutual respect. And in terms of mutual respect, we got 19 points for a light touch sent to us on Friday afternoon with a note that we had to say whether we wanted in or out within 2 days, which is something a bit less than mutual respect. Nevertheless, we will earn mutual respect. The next question comes from Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. It's sort of not really a question. It's really just I completely support that, and I was a councillor that was around the table in the time when Len Brown was here. And one of the things, and I think Councillor Fletcher picked on it, is Plan Change 78 is something that we really need to have the Prime Minister and the members of Parliament around the table really understanding what's happening in Auckland. And I know, Your Worship, I know that when you were standing for the mayoralty and other mayoralty candidates for standing, I took you around to show you some of the really good examples of what I could see was coming. And this network capacity for Auckland with the water care and the wastewater was something that I could see back in 2004 when I organised that Audit New Zealand report. And I knew this was going to happen, and I think it's really, really important that we get people like the Minister, Chris Bishop, to really understand what is happening here with Plan Change 78. So I really, really endorse this and hope all the members around here will support E, because I think it would be really good to get the ministers around the table to really understand and even to come and walk with some of this to have a look at some of the issues.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, during lunchtime, I was asked to answer a few questions about Plan 78, and I was unable to answer them clearly. So I think I'm going to ask it on the next GV or next opportunity that Megan brings us up to date with. I mean, planning is a language which is something like English, but it's very easy to misunderstand. And the letters that I get from the ministers are hard to understand and often are not don't make sense in relationship to what the other ones want. So Plan Change 78 in itself doesn't warrant a regional deal, but it does warrant some clear understanding on all sides. There is some tension between some of the ministers and what they write to us, really. Minister Bishop is very keen on getting on with it and then not so keen to getting on with it. And So would be best to address your panel there, Richard Hills?
Yeah, we are trying to figure out how to bring something back to December. Megan has been in touch back and forth with the Minister's office. I've spoken to the Minister 2 weeks ago, told him all of our concerns that are the same concerns as we've had from the beginning. Myself, you and Angela Dalton have written to the Minister. I think there's a letter due to come back. But our main goal is still got to be that legislative change before we can do anything. Most of our side of things are ready to not go, but we just need movement. So we are worried that it's stretching out further and further, but we're waiting on answers. But hopefully we'll have a formal update in December, even if it's an informal update. I know that Megan is speaking directly with the Minister as well.
Okay, well, I don't want this to overwhelm the debate about a city deal. So what we'll do is we'll ask the CEO to make sure that within the next month, Megan and whoever else can attempt to clarify the issue for us. So at least we all understand the same thing. Because even if I talk to all of you, I get 20 different answers. And I'm honest enough to say that I don't fully understand it, to be honest. Okay, thank you. And this, Councillor Fletcher, do you want a third go, or are you right now?
I think I've made my point, but it's interesting for me that where Phil Goff wanted to deal directly himself, we didn't actually achieve a lot. And just as you have quite correctly pointed out with CCOs, maybe we can approach it slightly differently. And I think advocacy with Wellington could be addressed a little differently, and we might get a better result. And that is in no way disrespectful to the advocacy you've brought, but it's really to allow all of us to back you up.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, this was moved by Councillor Walker and seconded by myself. You guys withdraw. That was, whilst that in theory was questions, it sounded much more like a debate to me. So is there anybody got anything further to add to this before I put this? Councillor Newman has. And Councillor
Well, thanks. I mean, I had
and Walker.
requested an amendment to add my name. I think I had the agreement to the move, but possibly not yours. There's been one contribution which possibly reflects a view contrary to that, which is fine. I'm not sure if I'm going to be included or not, but anyway, I'd like to be. Just, I guess, with respect to the regional deal, Your Worship, I mean, I take the point from Councillor Fletcher, actually. I think in the first 6 years that I was here, the relationship that the council had with government really didn't seem to achieve very much at all. I think it was quite a tight arrangement between those people who are part of that discussion. It wasn't me, but it didn't really seem to achieve much for Auckland. I think that whatever you think about the whole concept of the regional deal, gracious government is for putting that on the table for some discussion. I actually think that there has been a movement from central government which has been useful for Auckland, and I think that the water reform is a case in point. I think there's some really good discussions that can be had in relation to some very positive changes with respect to the GPS on land transport. I think that there are some, it might not be supported by everybody, but I think that the roads of national significance will be of some benefit to a lot of Aucklanders. I do think there are a lot of issues in the housing space that need to be resolved. And part of that is information that ministers need to understand, but also their advisors. The advisors to ministers need to address, which they haven't, because clearly the density standards don't work well for Auckland. And the other thing is clearly the plan changes, which need to be, obviously the council suffers every time we have a permissive planning arrangement that allows for these plan change applications to be lodged and processed. But if I can just say, Chair, I think that with respect to my request, either that is going to be accepted or it's not. But for that to not be acknowledged, I think is poor form.
Thank you for that. Councillor Henderson.
Okay. Look, I just wanted to pick up on that really good answer there from staff around the risks. Devolution was a really important part of that for me, that we should be going to the table and asking for responsibilities to be devolved to us. I'm still a little bit anxious about what we might be giving up in this process. So, I trust that the group will fight for us in that regard, and we'll also be ratifying it, I'm sure, before it becomes the law of the land. So in those situations, I think we're good. But not transactional, I think, is a really important part of that. Just putting it out there that we probably need to put up things like tourism, that we do not get our fair share there. Major events is a massive issue. We can ask for a laundry list of things, but the key point as well is that we have to have broad agreement at this table about it, right? I don't think we should be putting things in that from our side that are particularly controversial at this table, because we have to agree to it. So those are kind of just some scraps of thoughts. Oh, last one. We've got local boards there. I think that the Chairs Forum is a good way of deciding who gets to do that. I would not agree with automatically defaulting to places that are facing the most growth, because for one, we can't predict it. We were wrong in predicting this in the past. Also, we need to be looking at places that already have lots of growth, had lots of growth in the last decade, that has not been addressed, and we're still playing catch up on that. Henderson, Massey, Upper Harbour, plenty of places, right? So I think we just leave that to the local board chairs to decide who they want to represent them. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. That was my first crack. I'll have a bit of a think about that. We might consider the chair of the appointments committee in addition. I haven't put names to people here, or rather went for positions, but and I wanted to keep it at kind of high level stuff rather than diving into section plan change 38. We could just consider planning, and then rather than diving into individual pieces of legislation, I was thinking hold it up at pieces of legislation that the government can pass that don't cost any money, just so that we can improve at a high level. If you dive into the weeds, we'll be stuck in the weeds. So, and then they talk about housing. I want to talk about immigration. The last government suddenly turned on the tap in their last throes and put 64,000 new Uber drivers in here who all want houses and streets to walk on. And so we need to have a bit of a say on that. Are people coming in or not? And who are they? What do we want? So can we go, I'd like to have a high level debate rather than, and then when weeds come up like Section 74, we'll be able to say, righto, two of our people will talk to Councillor Bishop and sort this out. Minister Bishop. And there are other things, marriage issues and whatnot too, but if we're not careful, it'll become as big as the Bible and as ineffective. So there is Councillor Walker and Councillor Lee are adding into this. Sorry.
I'd like to speak in support of Councillor Newman being on this political reference group. Well, I'm supportive of that. It's a political reference group. I think most of us would know that Councillor Newman understands the politics, probably of this government more than most of us. Well, I'm supportive of you regardless. Even if you're not interested, I'm interested that you're interested and should be there.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, but I'm losing it. Thank you.
I'm happy to consider that too. Thank you very much. I think you make good points. Councillor Lee.
Just for the record, and I may have missed an amendment to the Act or whatever, but there's now routine reference to the Independent Māori Statutory Board, which is a statutory body under the Local Government Auckland Amendment Act, as haukura. Now, clearly that's the preferred name now, but for the members of the public and for the record, there should be an inclusion, perhaps in brackets, of IMSB to let people know what we're talking about. Even in the mayoral proposal, there's a routine reference to haukura. Not many people outside this room know what that is, and they should. That's my request. Thank you.
I'm quite happy to accept that. It's a bit like Tāteki. The people at the tennis club didn't realise it was actually councillors' money. Righto, good point. Thank you very well made for that. That seems to be the end of people who are desperate to say something or other. So this has been moved and seconded. And I'll pick up on all their recommendations and chew them over. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. And like we've done pretty well there, thank you very much. We are now moving to item 12.
Your Worship, can I just...
Oh, I'm sorry, the Chief Executive has interrupted, 11.8.
The speed of that caught me out a little bit. There was a discussion happening in the background because of actually several councillors' desire to participate in this. So we were about to put up on the screen a small amendment that said, and any other councillors who wish to participate. Okay, so I apologise, this is kind of a bit out of whack in terms of the resolution, but I didn't want there to be any ill feeling about anyone's name being on there who wanted to participate, and the Mayor's office and Max are entirely comfortable with that.
I think remember you saying that. So
my understanding of the reference group is those people have to show up, and anyone else who's interested can show up. Okay? Right. But the more it's not the more the merrier, it's usually the more the longer. But thank you for offering that, and I'm now going to offer that all councillors who wish to attend the Chief Executive's meetings are welcome to go to that as well. We'll assume that passed as it was. Righto, thanks very much. I'm going to item 12 rather. Status update on action decisions from the governing body, which is something or other about telling us whether we did it or not. And has anyone read these? I'll go and look them up quickly.
Can I just ask a question on this, Your Worship, please? Just on the Fix and Finish Fund memo that went out on the 24th of October. Am I in the right? Yeah. The next steps don't include governing body sign-off. So, it just goes to you. So I'm just wondering, will we as councillors get a chance to see the final and approve it? And if so, when?
I'm not sure everyone can hear that, but there is an undertaking that the Fix and Finish Fund will come back to the governing body.
Didn't want it approved before we had a chance to see it. Thank you.
Is anyone prepared to move this and second it? Councillor, who? Councillor Walker. Walker's moved it, seconded by Councillor Baker. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye. The contrary, carried. Item 13, the summary of the governing body and committee information memoranda. Oh, that's interesting. Actually, it's Erica Stanford. It says here on page 35, Eric Stanford's a bloke. It's Erica, if that's okay, without changing its meaning at all. That minor amendment. It's been moved and seconded, and all those in favour, please say aye. And to the contrary, carried. I think at that stage here, I can say that we have achieved a new world record in finishing the GV just before 2 o'clock. I'd like to thank all those attending, and the meeting is now closed.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Sonia.